Hello, all you positive heads out there. It's so good to be back with all you beautiful reflections of the one source consciousness that creates and animates all things. If you're new to this podcast, of course, we are super happy to have you here, and we just ask that you bring an open mind and heart to your listening experience and to be prepared to explore vantage points that I'm convinced will help shift or solidify your current understanding of the ultimate nature of reality in a way that is extremely empowering. Speaking of exploring powerful perspectives, I'm super excited to announce the release of my very first book, The Golden Key: Modern Alchemy to Unlock Infinite Abundance. If you're ready to alchemize the circumstances in your life so that your abundance expands to an entirely new level in 2021, head over to goldenkey.gift to download the audio or ebook as my gift to you by using the code POSITIVEHEAD.
All right, all you positive heads, welcome. Welcome, one and all. I'm super grateful that you have joined me today on a day where I kind of fought about this topic because every time I would think to myself, what am I going to talk about today? The answer came up so many times. Talk about what happens when we die. And I kept thinking of other options that I wanted to do instead. But I kept being very strongly guided and almost kind of yelled at what happens when we die. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. And interestingly, in my work, I get to guide a lot of people through the death experience. So maybe that's something that we don't always think about when we do a past life regression. But in the method that I use called QHHT, we often, and not always, but often will visit a past life. And in this past life, we will take the client through the death and often ask what happens after they die. Like right afterwards, okay, well, what's happening next? And then what's happening next? And where do you go from here? That kind of stuff. And so I have got to hear lots of really cool stories about what happens when we die. I've also had a couple sessions myself and have had those experiences as well. And so it provides a really cool perspective. And I know that a lot of people have this question because death is something that a lot of us are afraid of, especially if we don't have a lot of information. And really, in this world that we live in, we kind of don't have any proof, right? But do we need it? Do we need proof? Can we go with our gut feelings, our emotions, what our body, what our heart says? We really don't need science to prove any of this to us when our knowing tells us so. And so my knowing tells me so about death and how we are so scared of it, and yet it is nothing to be afraid of. And every single person that I have taken through the death experience, no matter how easy of a death or how traumatic of a death, it always is the same in that moment where they leave the body. They're just in a moment, in a split second, out of the body. Oh, I'm out of the body now. And I'm looking down and I can see all around me. And I always ask the question, well, how do you feel now that you're out of the body? Well, none of that really matters anymore, is a very typical response. The perspective turns completely. It could have been the most traumatic and horrific death where they were going through Lord knows what. And the minute they cross over and look back at that life, they just say, everything's okay. I'm all right. Look where I am. I feel fine now. And none of that matters anymore. And so that is a really big common theme. And I think that is a main message to get out to everyone listening, because this is one of the questions that people come in with on a regular basis, wanting to know about what happens, and is this scary, and do I need to worry about my loved ones who have crossed or maybe are crossing soon. And it's a really beautiful thing to know that it's not scary. There has never been a scary story in my entire career. Has it ever been scary? And by the way, no such thing as hell. Never come up, ever, ever, ever in a single session has anyone ever gone to the proverbial hell. It just doesn't exist. It could if that person were to create it in their mind, sure, but it doesn't actually exist. Anything that we create or anything that we want, we can create in our mind. And it's much easier to do on the spirit side. But I'll tell you what, I've never seen it. And I think that if someone were to take themselves down that path, there would be tons of angelic help to help them understand and guide them in a different direction so they could see. Because here's what happens. Once we cross over, we are typically met by a helper, a guide. Maybe it's one, maybe it's three, maybe it's even a loved one, someone that we recognize. And maybe it's not. Often it can be the light, and that's a welcoming being in and of itself. So it can happen in so many ways. And by the way, as I'm saying this, I'm also thinking about those people who have had near-death experiences. They also experience these very similar things that the people report in their past life regression sessions. And so for me, that's very, very validating that this just has to be the way that it is then if all these different people are saying, well, this is what I see. And what's great is that sometimes what they're seeing can sound and feel like they're making it up. It could sound ridiculous. Like often in a near-death experience, people will float around in the colors. And the colors is a very healing place. They can feel themselves being healed in this place. And this is a place that people go to in my sessions all the time. They go to the colors. And in this place of the colors, they experience healing. And it's the most amazing thing to watch and have them describe to me as they're floating around these colors. And different people experience it in different ways. Most of the time, they are one with it. And these colors are healing them, and they can feel it in their bodies. They either feel warm sensations, tingling sensations, vibrations. There's a variety of different things that people will sense in their bodies when they are in this healing place of the colors. And so that happens in near-death experiences, that happens in past life regressions. And the healing place itself is a place that many of us, if not all of us, go to after we die. Because what we have just experienced has been difficult. And so we need to heal from that before we move on to our next experience. And before we go to the healing place, what we do is we get an entire life review. And this happens really, really quickly. Like concepts, very, very quickly. You see your entire life. And the way you see it is, you see your life as how you made the other person feel. And you feel the way they felt when you did or said or behaved in whatever way you did. And so you literally get to experience it from every single person's angle in this very quick moment there. Time doesn't exist quite like it does here. It doesn't exist. It's just, there is no reference. And so this all happens very, very quickly if time was a thing. And what happens is you have to then judge yourself. You're not being judged by a God in the sky that's saying you did this wrong or that wrong. It's you judging yourself. And when you do that and you feel it from each of those other people's perspective, it can kind of hurt a little because you didn't realize it then. And so then that's something that you have to understand on the spirit side and go to the healing place and really rest and do some work. It's a place that people describe in multiple different ways. Some as the colors, but oftentimes people describe it as like a white room where they actually like lay down on a table. And there are beings who work on them, and then they finish their work and they leave them to rest. And they get to rest in this place for as long as they need. And as whenever they're done, everyone just knows. And then they're done and they move on to the next thing. And the next thing is, what's the next life I'm going to go into? Or what's my next job? What am I going to do next? What's the next lesson that my soul needs to learn or wants to experience in order to ultimately go back to Source, become one with Source? We all have to learn so many different lessons in order to get back to where we started. And we all agreed to do this for the experience. And it's a fun little game when you think about it this way, because we never really die. We just come in and out of physical existence. And once we come to Earth, we agree to do it all. Everything. Every single thing there is to experience here on Earth, once we decide we're coming to this school, we get to do it all. And so that means most of us are going to have a lot of lives here. There are some of us where that situation is different, and we've come as volunteers or grid workers, and again, lots of different options. But even, I know, I'll tell you in my experience, I am a soul who I know has been here since the beginning, I feel like. I have been here since the beginning of Earth. And since I'm talking about this, I'll tell you a little bit about this lifetime that I experienced in a session of my own. And the life was more of a like Sasquatch being. We lived in the trees, and it was such a beautiful life. We communed with nature and each other, and we were telepathic, and we just knew we had sight. It was a different way of living. And what happened when I died in that life is that it was my time. I knew it was my time. And before it was time to go, I passed down all of the knowledge that I had to my son. And when I was ready, I walked to this pond, this hole that was kind of like a rock cliff, or almost even a cave. And I just slumped over and put my face in the pool and died. And that was it. And sunk down into the pool. And it was very peaceful. There was no fear. It was just like, it's my time. I'm going to go now. Peace, y'all. See you later. And that, from what I have seen in my work, is that is the way it always used to be. Back in the old days, in the ancient times, before we became afraid of death, before all of these ancient teachings were taken away from us and hidden, we weren't afraid. We understood our connections. We felt it all, and there wasn't anyone telling us otherwise. And so when it was time to go, it was time to go, and it was, all right, we'll see you on the next round. But somewhere along the line, that changed. And ever since then, there has been the fear and more disease and more holding on in a lifetime. And that is something that we see so much of now. And so if any of you are experiencing this with a loved one, maybe it's a grandma or even a mother or a parent, if they're holding on, a lot of times they're doing it, one, because they're afraid, or two, they feel like they're needed and they don't want to leave you because you're going to be so upset about it. And so often when they are told that everything's going to be okay, it's all right for you to go, we're going to be just fine, you're never really gone, we know you're going to be around, you can send us messages, and you can pick the message. You can even ask specifically for things for that person to send to you once they pass, so that you can have communication with them. And by the way, that is always possible. We can always speak to our loved ones on the other side. You know, I had an experience where it was a few years after my mom had passed, and she literally yelled at me, like so loud in my ear that I was like, all right, Mom, I'm sorry. I'll do it. And they do that. They will yell at us if they really want to get our attention. One other time, my mother sent me, I'll tell you from the beginning of the story because it's actually a pretty cool story. She has sent me so many messages since she's been gone, and she actually came and visited my daughter in a dream just last week or the week before. And so that was really nice to know that she's visiting her as well. But it was a time years ago, and I was just really upset about her passing. I just missed her. I missed my mom, and I had questions. I had mom questions. I had a little one, and I didn't have a mom to call. And I was just really upset about it. And I was crying hysterically. And I went into the powder room of the little townhouse I was living in, and I turned on the fan. And I live in Arizona, and so it was hot out. And so that means all of the doors and windows are closed. The AC is on. I have the fan on in the bathroom. And I'm in there crying, and I'm talking to my mom, just telling her how much I miss her. And I hear so loudly this bird, like just so loud, yelling so loud. And I look up in the mirror, and I was like, Mom, is that you? If I go outside and that is a red cardinal in the tree, I will absolutely know that that is you. And so I walked out of the bathroom, opened up my sliding glass door, and walked out to my little backyard where I had this one little tree, and there was a red cardinal sitting in it. And I'll tell you what, they are like super, super rare to see. And not only that, but how did I hear him from inside my house, close windows, close doors, in the bathroom, closed doors with the fan on? And so that is absolutely 100% my mother saying, hi, I'm here. I didn't leave you. I just am not here in the physical right now. And so these are the ways that our loved ones communicate with us all the time. They send us little critters. They send us birds. They send us pennies. They send us songs. And oftentimes, too, they'll use other people to give us a gift or give us a message or say something that is a certain little phrase that we needed to hear so we know that they are around. And so sometimes it's just asking them to show you a specific sign. And if you define it for them and together, then it's easier to see. And then it feels a little bit better. It's not like you don't still miss your loved one, but it is a very comforting thought to know that they are still here with us and that none of us ever really die. We just transition to the other side, learn a whole lot more, and then come in for a whole nother experience. Do it all again. This is all a fun game that I, for one, am very, very grateful to participate in. And I think that's it for me today, everyone. I'm going to leave you with a song by Symbolico called Human Beings. Until next time, I love you all.
Also, before we cue up today's song, as a quick reminder, don't forget to download the Golden Key audio or ebook as my free gift to you at goldenkey.gift using the Golden Key code POSITIVEHEAD. And please, if you enjoy my gift, leave a positive review on Amazon so others can unlock their lives with the help of the Golden Key as well.